your ear to the ground? What are you hearing as the general reaction to the Trevor Lawrence signing?
Well, I believe and have believed for a long time that, and I'll start with Dak Prescott, the Trevor Lawrence deal has nothing to do with him. His leverage flows from the contract that he signed 3 years ago. It was specifically designed to force the Cowboys to extend it now. Big cap number this year of $55.4 million. And next year, if he leaves in free agency and they have no way to hold him in place, no franchise tag is available, no trade clause in the contract, he walks away as a free agent next year, they still carry $54 million in his name for 2025. The only way to handle those numbers and to get those in line is to extend his contract. And that's where his leverage comes from. The market doesn't matter. His leverage comes from his circumstances under his contract. So this thing has lingered a lot longer than I thought it would. I thought the Cowboys would get this taken care of. And the longer it goes, I think at some point the Cowboys decide, we're going to let you go to the market and see what else is out there, because we think at the end of the day, you're going to realize even if someone's offering you more, you'd still rather stay here and be the Dallas Cowboys quarterback for the entirety of your career.
Well, what's the reaction to the Trevor Lawrence contract? What are you hearing on that?
Well, I think Trevor Lawrence has more of an impact as it relates to Tua and Jordan Love. Those are the next two that I think as a practical matter are either going to get or not get a contract before camp starts. I don't expect Dak to. I think at this point there would have to be enough of a change from the Cowboys. It would be so dramatic that I just don't expect it to happen given everything that's happened to lead to this point. With Tua and Jordan Love, and I'll start with Tua. I think he wants a market deal. He said a couple of weeks ago, the market is the market. And I think if you talk to the people who are representing him, they start comparing him to the guys who have gotten contracts that start with a 5. He wants a contract, I believe, that starts with a 5. Will Stephen Ross, the owner of the Dolphins, authorize a contract that starts with a 5? Or do the Dolphins say, you know what, we're going to offer you a long-term deal. Here it is. It starts with a 4. And you can either take it or you can play out the 5th year of your rookie contract at $23.1 million, and we'll see where we are next year. That's what I think the Dolphins are going to do. I'll be surprised if Stephen Ross authorizes a market deal for Tua Tagovailoa, because I still think we're kind of in this, we don't know which way he's going to go. He's still not clearly franchise quarterback. He's not a bust. He's in that middle category of he could be a franchise quarterback. We just aren't there yet. We'd like to be able to have more time to make that decision before we give him a franchise quarterback contract.
Yeah, I mean, this is just a fascinating development, and it's taken about, what would you say, 10 years plus for it to come home to roost. The collective bargaining agreement of 2011 that stopped this generational enriching from occurring with players who have played 0 downs in the NFL, and pushing it down the road to give a look-see for a team to make a decision on this quarterback. And we have seen how that's played out, that now the generational enriching is given to somebody who's proven it-ish, right? A little bit of ish to it, that you could see it. There's a smell test, there's an eye test that they've passed, but the actual proof from the pudding test still isn't there. And there's different levels of it. There's Burrow making it to a Super Bowl but being hurt around it. There's Justin Herbert, who hasn't won a single playoff game, and he gets it, but because he's passed the eye test. And then there's Trevor Lawrence, who's beaten one quarterback, and it's Justin Herbert in the playoffs with some other iffy, Urban Meyer 1 year, injury the next, ascension in year 2. It's time to pay him. Like we're seeing some of that. There's Daniel Jones outliers. There's Jared Goff, who gets it later on with a second team after getting it in this first team. I'm just wondering where you think this is going, Mike. Where is this going?
And Rich, as a general observation, it's why it's critical to process the initial reports of what the value of a contract is. And the folks who rush to Twitter to try to beat each other to the punch with the first tweet that says the contract is agreed to, here's the value, here's the guarantee. It's more important to wait for the full details, because within the full details, you can do an assessment for how long the team is really on the hook. I'll give you a couple examples.
Please.
Geno Smith, three years, $105 million. when you look at it, oh, wait, it's a year-to-year contract. The Seahawks can pull the plug anytime they want after a given year and move on. Daniel Jones, oh, look at this 4-year commitment. Well, it's a 2-year commitment. So a lot of Derek Carr. Remember when Derek Carr got his contract with the Raiders? $40 million a year and almost guaranteed. And they found the escape hatch. They deliberately designed the escape hatch for right after his first season. And they took it and they cut him. So that's the key. We see these big numbers, and the agents love those big numbers to be put out there because it makes them look good and it lets them get employed by new clients. The devil really is in the details. The truth is, forget the devil, the truth is in the details. And we try to break down the details so people understand what the commitment really is. So that's going to be the key for all these contracts. How long of a commitment is it really? When can the team pull the plug and move on as a practical matter from this deal? Secondly, though, you have teams that are in a tough spot. Like, look at the Jaguars. And I've said this about the Jaguars and the Lions with Lawrence and Goff. Who are they bidding against? Who out there is even in a position to put leverage on these teams to pay this kind of money? But I think what these teams are doing, they're betting on the player ascending. And if the player's going to ascend, we want to get in at a number that we know is going to be a hell of a lot higher if we wait too long. We're going to screw around and find out if we wait too long. And that's what was brilliant about what the Jaguars did. Get this deal done now and lock him in at 55 for a long time, like the Chiefs locked in Mahomes at 45 for a long time. Lock him in at a number that seems high right now, but we know which way the cap's going. We know which way the market's going. And before too long, 55 is going to be, hey, that's a pretty good deal for Trevor Lawrence if he becomes the guy that they think he's going to be.
That's the question, is who's going to be the team, because Brockman's pounding that. I think my Chris, for lack of a better phrase, and yours, for lack of a better phrase, are kind of, lockstep, that some team is going to have to stare down the barrel here and say, instead of betting on the player and instead of using that betting on the player to actually spread the word in the locker room, we pay our own when they do what we think they can do future and what we see they are doing present in terms of being a terrific professional and member of the community. We're going to pay you. That they're going to place all that aside, hard-hearted, go into this thing and basically say, you're playing out the contract, and then we'll talk and roll the dice that way and potentially F around there and find out otherwise. And I'm wondering who that team's going to be and which quarterback is it going to be. Could it be the Dolphins and Tua right now? Is this the version of what Jerry Jones is doing with Dak, even though he really doesn't hold many cards, as you described earlier in this conversation? Who's that team going to be? Will we ever see that, Mike?
I think moving forward, the Cowboys with Dak are the most likely to do it, because I don't think they want to give Dak what it's going to take to get themselves out of this current salary cap jam. And I think they're confident that if it's time to go to the open market, whatever they offer is going to be enough that Dak won't want to give up what it means to be the Dallas Cowboys quarterback. They've used that affirmatively in the past to try to get guys to take less. Look at all this other money you can make. You just waltz right into the number one booth of a network when you're done playing if you're the Cowboys quarterback for your whole career. So I think that's part of it. But, the Vikings kind of already did it with Kirk Cousins. Not a young quarterback finishing his first contract or second contract, an older quarterback, but they let him go to free agency. And they had a number they were willing to keep him at. And he found more in Atlanta, and that's it. The Vikings had to move on to plan B. The one thing that hasn't happened yet, in the classic sense that I think you're referring to, guy who is good enough to continue to play for the team, but he wants too much. His rookie contract has expired, and the team says, we're not going to use the franchise tag. We're just going to let you hit the market, and we'll see what happens.
Yep.
And go ahead. Good luck. Godspeed if you find a better offer somewhere else. I thought the Giants were going to do that with Daniel Jones, and they didn't. They worked out the deal instead and then tagged for Saquon Barkley. I think they wanted to work out a deal with Barkley and tag Jones so they'd have that year-to-year flexibility, because they weren't sure what he was going to be after that 1 year that he looked pretty good. But that's really the test, and it hasn't happened yet. I thought the Rams should have done it with Jared Goff in 2019. They made him market level, $33 million at the time. Look how much the market's changed. And 2 years later, they end up tucking an extra first-round pick into Matthew Stafford trade to get that contract off the books.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.